You're watching All 24 News World News program live from Algiers, and up next are tonight's top stories. As Gaza's tragedy enters the third year, Hamas calls for unified resistance as the humanitarian crisis in the Strip deepens. The Polisario Front takes the EU-Morocco trade deal to court, calling it illegal, while the UN chief urges a breakthrough in the Western Sahara conflict. And at the Africa and Mediterranean Energy and Hydrogen Conference, Algeria earns global recognition for its energy strategy. An Italian ENI reaffirmed its commitment to expand investments in the country. Welcome back to the details. Since dawn, occupation airstrikes and shelling have killed at least 11 Palestinians and wounded several others across the Gaza Strip. Medical sources say the attacks targeted displaced and starving civilians in multiple areas. In Gaza City, 3 Palestinians were killed in an airstrike on a Sabra neighborhood, while 2 others, including a child, were killed in Khan Yunis in the south. The bombardment continues as the occupation intensifies its ground and air assaults on the Strip. The first round of talks between mediators and Hamas in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt ended on a positive note. Media sources said the meeting outlined a roadmap and mechanisms for the new round of discussions. The Hamas delegation stressed that the continued bombardment of Gaza hinders any progress on prisoner releases. The delegation included Khalil al-Hayya and Zahar Jabarin, both survivors of the recent assassination attempt in Doha. The Islamic resistance movement Hamas said the Battle of Al-Aqsa flood, launched by the Ghassam Brigades on October 7, 2023, marked a major turning point in the region's political and military landscape. In a statement on Tuesday, the movement noted that 2 years on, the operation's repercussions continue to shape regional and international dynamics.
Today marks the second anniversary of the blessed Al-Aqsa flood battle, October 7, the day of the glorious crossing. The battle is still ongoing and its repercussions continue casting their political and military shadows on the region, as it constituted a major turning point in the political and military scene of the region. 2 years on, the enemy is still persisting in its brutal war against our steadfast Palestinian people, committing massacres against defenseless civilians amid disgraceful international silence and unprecedented Arab abandonment. 2 years of pain, injustice, oppression, great suffering, and great sacrifices, with the resistance eyes looking toward the freedom of Al-Quds, Al-Aqsa, and Palestine, all of Palestine. 2 years of popular steadfastness, unity around the resistance, and the bravery of the sons and owners of the land in confronting foreign occupiers, outcasts from all places.
Hamas called on all Palestinian factions to unite around the path of resistance and adopt a common strategy to confront the Zionist occupation. Marking the second anniversary of the Battle of Al-Aqsa flood, Hamas leader Fawzi Barhoum said resistance remains a legitimate right, ensuring Palestinians' freedom and dignity, stressing that an independent state with Al-Quds as its capital is closer than ever. Qatar's foreign ministry said the main obstacles to President Trump's Gaza plan concern its implementation on the ground, praising Hamas's acceptance of handing over prisoners to end the war on the Strip. Spokesman Majid Ansari confirmed Tuesday that all parties have agreed to the plan, which includes a ceasefire by the occupying forces still not observed.
U.S. President's plan for the Gaza Strip consists of approximately 20 points. All of these points require practical explanations on the ground, which of course requires communication with all parties. As you know, all parties are present there in Egypt now. Now it's early to talk about any alternatives to any plan. We are talking about implementing this plan and applying it. All parties have agreed to it. So there are no obstacles now in terms of agreeing to the 20 points contained in President Trump's plan. The obstacles now are in implementation. This is stated explicitly in the plan, that handing over the hostages will be the end of the war. The United States has said it is committed to this, and all parties are committed to it.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Washington will do everything possible to ensure all parties comply with his plan to end the war in Gaza. Speaking alongside Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney at the White House, Trump stressed that U.S. influence will guarantee the war does not resume once consensus is reached on his peace plan for the Strip.
I don't think there's anybody that hasn't, actually, not that I've seen, but there's a real chance that we could do something, so you may have some questions on that later. We are very close to making a deal on the Middle East that will bring peace to the Middle East. After all of these years of millions and millions, tens of millions of people being killed, there's a chance to bring peace to the Middle East.
For 703 days, the Zionist war on Gaza has continued, creating a landscape of devastation across the Strip. The ongoing aerial and artillery bombardment of densely populated areas and near total absence of humanitarian aid and the collapse of the health system have defined 2 years of unrelenting crisis. Nabil Khazini has more.
This was Gaza 2 years ago, a place of life, of warmth, and of peace, until this happened. Today, Gaza is only a shadow of what it once was. Homes razed to the ground, a sky that forgot how to stop burning. For 2 years, Gaza has lived one day at a time, each one harder than the last. This once crowded strip of land, just 40 kilometers long, now feels endless, covered in dust, rubble, and silence. What was once homes, schools, hospitals, markets, are all turned into broken stones.
We've lost the family gatherings and the nice meals. We've lost the good moments. During these 2 years of war, we've lost educational institutions and healthcare institutions. I wake up every morning wishing that I would see my children in their school uniforms, and I dress them, that they would go to school and pursue their education. Today, after 2 years of the war, there is no education. The healthcare system has completely collapsed. We've become displaced.
Figures show that out of every 10 people, 9 have fled. 1 in 10 have been killed or wounded. Some have lost everything, others lost everyone. 4 children out of every 100 have lost a mother, a father, or even both. Some will never know who they lost, and others don't even live long enough to be named.
From the first day of the war, there was killing, displacement, destruction, and all types of torture. The storming of hospitals, the killing of individuals, the killing of children, the elderly, and women, the destruction of hospitals, the destructions of homes, on top of their residents. Sometimes we did not find the bodies, and sometimes we found the bodies underneath the rubble.
2 years of war have changed Gaza forever. But beyond the rubble and loss, the story is still one of survival.
Moving on to Western Sahara now, the Polisario Front has condemned the new European Union-Morocco trade agreement, calling it a flagrant violation of international law for including the occupied Western Sahara. The Front's representative, Abi Bashar al-Bashir, stated that the Sahrawi Republic reserves its legitimate right to appeal to the international courts to overturn the decision.
The Polisario Front strongly condemns and categorically rejects this agreement and reserves its legitimate right, guaranteed by the European Court of Justice, especially in the latest ruling, to once again appeal to the court to annul it. as has happened on previous occasions. This agreement, in fact, constitutes a blatant violation of international law and European law, fundamental breach. Indeed, this agreement represents a circumvention of the ruling issued by the European Court of Justice on October 4, 2024, by clearly bypassing the requirement of obtaining the consent of the Sahrawi people, whom the court affirmed as the people entitled to the right of self-determination. The court made it clear that this consent is the first and final condition for any trade agreement with Morocco.
The Polisario representative in Geneva and advisor on natural resources and legal affairs confirmed that the agreement was negotiated between the European Commission and Morocco without the explicit approval of EU member states, describing it as complex and irregular.
The agreement, it seems, was negotiated between the European Commission and Morocco over the past several months without an explicit authorization from the member states of the European Union. It is inconceivable that the Commission obtained a mandate on September 10 and then announced that it had reached an agreement with Morocco just 5 days later, on September 15. This agreement is complex, with legal, political, and economic implications. Moreover, it was implemented through a provisional application mechanism to bypass the European Parliament, using written correspondence to avoid debate, effectively aiming to impose a fait accompli. This was confirmed today by the chair of the European Parliament's Committee on International Trade. The agreement was discussed exclusively with Morocco, while the Sahrawi people and their sole legitimate representative, the Polisario Front, were completely excluded.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed concern over the situation in Western Sahara, warning that persistent tensions continue to block progress toward a political solution. In his report to the Security Council ahead of its session on the Sahara issue in Minurso, Guterres urged renewed efforts to end the stalemate and advance a just settlement for the Sahrawi people.
I remain deeply concerned about the situation in Western Sahara and the persistent conditions of the ground that hinder progress towards political solution. As the conflict marks its 15th anniversary in November 2025, this prolonged crisis underscores the urgent need for renewed efforts to achieve a resolution. It is crucial to break the current deadlock for the sake of the Sahrawi people's aspirations, regional stability, and development. I urge all parties to engage without delay in supporting UN-led efforts toward a just and mutually acceptable political solution that guarantees the right of the people of Western Sahara to self-determination in line with Security Council resolutions.
Moving on to another topical development, political, trade union, and human rights groups in Morocco have called for the release of detainees linked to the youth protests and an end an investigation into the shooting deaths of 3 citizens. The call comes amid ongoing demonstrations demanding better living conditions, an end to the corruption, and the resignation of the Mersin government. The organizations voiced full support for the youth movement's just social and economic demands, describing the protests as a natural result of the hardships facing many Moroccan youths.
We fully support the social, economic, and educational demands, as well as the project expressed by the youth movement. These circumstances are a natural result of the difficult conditions faced by a large segment of Moroccan youth, caused by political, economic, social choices that have generated poverty and vulnerability. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of all detainees, and for an end to all prosecutions against young people in connection with these peaceful movements, as well as the release of all political prisoners.
Back home now, U.S. political and energy expert and CEO of North Africa Risk Consulting, Geoff Porter, described Algeria as one of the most stable countries in the region. Speaking at the opening of the 13th African Mediterranean Energy and Hydrogen Conference and Exhibition, Porter praised the legal framework Algeria has come up with to promote investment and attract foreign businessmen and companies.
Today, Algeria is safe. The security risks that characterized the upstream 30, 20, 10 years ago no longer exist. The regulatory environment is also the best it's ever been. The 2019 hydrocarbons law is in effect. It isn't perfect. The kinks are being worked out. And we have seen that Al-Naft and the HRA are willing to work with partners in order to improve and amend the 2019 hydrocarbons law in order to support acceptable outcomes for both Algeria and for the IOCs.
In the energy sector, U.S. political and energy expert Geoff Potter praised Algeria's role in ensuring the stability of global energy markets, stressing that the country has remained a reliable gas supplier despite international crises.
The investment environment has never been better, and it's never been a better time to help them help you, and ultimately forge mutually beneficial partnerships for both Algeria and for its international partners.
Participants praised the 13th African Mediterranean Energy and Hydrogen Exhibition and Conference, describing it as an important platform to advance and realize their investments.
It's truly an international, global, and African event in every sense of the word. Our participation in the 13th edition represents a major leap before the world in terms of investment in Mediterranean countries. We are currently seeking investment opportunities, whether in the great nation of Algeria, in Libya, or across North Africa as a whole. What we really need is stability and transparency.
Eni Algeria CEO Giorgio Vecchini said Algeria's vast energy potential drives the company's plans to expand its presence in current and future projects. He added that Eni is closely following the upcoming hydrocarbons tender and exploring participation in line with its strategy and partnership with Sonatrach.
The investment climate in Algeria is excellent, and Eni has significant investments in the country. We have strengthened our presence in Algeria, particularly over the past few years. We also took part in the tender launched last year by the Algerian Oil Agency, and this past July we signed new contracts with Sonatrach, notably in the Berkine Basin. We are now awaiting the new tender that the oil agency will launch in the coming months, which we will carefully assess. Algeria is an important and attractive country for investment, and we have many projects that we plan to implement here.
President of the National Agency for the Valorization of Hydrocarbon Resources and Naft, Samir Bakhti, said the positive results of the previous tender encouraged the agency to launch a new exploration bidding round early next year. He added that strong foreign companies' interest reflects confidence in Algeria's energy investment climate.
In 2026, a new international tender will be launched in Algeria's hydrocarbon sector. The results of last year's 2025 tender were very positive, which encourages us to move ahead with preparations for the next round. We have conducted extensive studies in the oil sector in cooperation with our partners, Sonatrach and the Ministry of Energy and Mines. For the upcoming tenders, we will adopt a slightly new approach. We have already selected a number of blocks, and the process will be organized on a broader scale. Once the blocks are finalized, we will prepare the relevant technical, strategic, and operational data and send them to companies around the world. We are currently talking about identifying and preparing between 20 and 25 blocks that have already been studied and defined.
Bakhti noted that offshore exploration faces technical challenges due to the Mediterranean's complex biological nature and great depth. He stressed that Algeria plans to offer new offshore blocks once all required technical studies and data are completed.
We won't be discussing offshore operations in detail today because we are still in a very advanced study phase. The seismic survey data has shown some positive indicators, God willing. However, before taking this step and launching our offshore blocks in an international tender, we must make sure and double-check because the depth of the Mediterranean basin of Algeria are significant and will require major investments. We're talking about depths exceeding 2,000 meters in some areas, where international companies such as the giant Chevron are already conducting offshore studies. These are experts in the field, and they are currently analyzing the offshore potential as well. This is the context in which we are discussing offshore exploration.
Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune received Slovenian Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign and European Affairs Tanja Fajon and her delegation. According to the presidency, the meeting was attended by Chief of the Presidency Cabinet Boualem Boualem, Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, Diplomatic Affairs Advisor Ammar Habba, and Algeria's Ambassador to Slovenia, Sabrina Bey. Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf said the creation of the Joint Government Committee with Slovenia marks a new step in strengthening bilateral ties. Closing the committee's first session with Slovenian Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Tanja Fajon, Attaf praised both delegations' efforts and described the new mechanism as a key pillar for guiding cooperation and partnership between the two countries.
فبتأسيس هذه اللجنة الحكومية المشتركة وبتفعيلها.
By setting up and activating this joint governmental committee, we will have completed the building of the foundation for our bilateral relations and provided the basis for regular and systematic cooperation so that we can move our bilateral partnership from will to action, from understanding to achievement, and from coordination to implementation of tangible projects that achieve our mutual interests for the benefit of the two friendly peoples.
على تعزيز علاقات التعاون والشراكة بين بلدينا.
Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune, Minister of National Defense and Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, received Tunisian Defense Minister Khalid Shili and his delegation on Tuesday. The meeting, attended by Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff Army General Said Chingriha, and Presidential Office Director Boualem Boualem, focused on strengthening defense cooperation between the two countries. Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army General Said Chingriha met with Tunisian Defense Minister Khalid Shili to discuss strengthening military cooperation and coordination on shared security issues. According to the Algerian Defense Ministry, the meeting took place during Shili's work visit to Algeria with a high-level delegation. Chingriha highlighted the strategic nature of Algerian-Tunisian relations, marked by strong ties and ongoing dialogue between the two countries' leaderships.
نفس التطلعات لتعزيز الاستقرار تتقاسم الجزائر وتونس.
Algeria and Tunisia share, by virtue of the geographical, historical, and cultural ties that unite them, the same aspirations to enhance security and stability in the region and build emerging economies that produce sustainable development.
The Algerian Army Chief of Staff stressed that the region's security, economic, and geopolitical challenges call for stronger joint action between Algeria and Tunisia, grounded in a comprehensive and a forward-looking vision.
من هذا المنظور تحرص الجزائر.
From this perspective, Algeria, under the leadership of Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, is keen to strengthen its bilateral relations with Tunisia in various fields, especially in the fields of defense and security, because we believe in Algeria that the security and stability of our two countries require the highest possible level of coordination and consultation.
Following the meeting between Algeria's Army Chief of Staff, Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, and the Tunisian Defense Minister, the two sides signed a joint government agreement on defense cooperation between their ministries. The Algerian Defense Ministry said the agreement marks a milestone in bilateral relations and a key step towards strengthening military cooperation between the two countries. Algeria has called for a broader and more effective role for the African Union with the United Nations and particularly the UN Security Council. Speaking on behalf of the A3+ group at the UN Security Council, Algeria's permanent representative to the UN, Ammar Benjama, emphasized the urgent need for sustainable reforms in the UN body to allow for more representations for the African Union.
The UN reform process under the UN 80 initiative, coupled with the significant financial challenges facing the organization, requires enhanced collaboration with regional organizations, including urgent institutional reform with respect of the AU's long-standing call for equity within the United Nations, in particular the UN Security Council. We believe it is time for the implementation of the letter and spirit of Chapter 8 of the UN Charter, which grants the AU a bigger role along with the necessary and predictable resources to undertake peace initiatives on behalf of the international community.
Moving on to the war in Ukraine now. The Russian Defense Ministry announced Tuesday that its air defense forces destroyed 184 Ukrainian drones overnight across several regions. The ministry said the interceptions took place between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. local time, targeting drones launched into multiple provinces. The Kremlin warned that any U.S. supply of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would be a dangerous escalation, while insisting it would not alter the situation on the battlefield. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Moscow is awaiting clarification from Washington, noting that such missiles are theoretically capable of carrying nuclear warheads.
It would be a serious round of escalation, which at the same time wouldn't be able to change the situation on the front lines for the Kiev regime. It is important to understand that we are talking about missiles, apart from the various nuances, that can also be nuclear capable. Therefore, this is a truly serious round of escalation. We understand that we will probably need to wait for clearer statements if they follow.
The Kremlin vowed Tuesday that Russia will respond to European Union plans to restrict the movement of Russian diplomats within the bloc. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Moscow's diplomatic services will prepare and implement countermeasures, expressing regret that Europeans are reviving their skills in building new separation walls. Reuters earlier reported, citing EU diplomats, that member states are close to finalizing the restrictions. U.S. President Donald Trump said he wants clarity on Ukraine's plans for using U.S.-made Tomahawk missiles before approving their delivery, stressing he does not seek to escalate the war with Russia. Asked Monday whether he had decided on supplying the missiles, Trump did not rule it out, confirming that a decision has been made.
Release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team. Yeah, I've sort of made a decision, pretty much. If you consider, I think I want to find out what they're doing with them. Yes. You know, where are they sending them? I guess I'd have to ask that question. That war should never have started. Would have never started. Such bad judgment was used there. I think on both sides, by the way. But nobody looks good with the war with Russia and Ukraine. Nobody. That's been a horrible. This week they lost over 7,000 soldiers between the two of them. This is every week they're losing 7,000, 8,000, 5,000.
And that wraps up tonight's program. For the latest updates, stay connected with us on our social media platforms as well as our website. Thanks for watching and good night.